So we see a lot of businesses and a lot of different business owners. The level of preparedness for succession varies dramatically across those. Some think about it for years, others it seems to sneak up on them and they get to a certain age and all of a sudden they just want to retire.
And this tends to be where a business owner has already identified who they believe the buyer of their business is going to be. They're usually a larger organisation with the management team and structures in place to be able to acquire the business without a senior management team in the target.
So we get asked this quite a lot now. Certainly now we've been doing a lot more employee ownership trusts, and I think our view is it really depends on the company. Some companies are very well suited for employee ownership and the succession makes it easier from a deal negotiation point of view and smoothness of transaction. But what we do find is owners have to spend more time in the business. Quite often a succession through employee ownership requires the vendors to stay around a lot longer or take more active involvement in passing over responsibilities to a wider pool of employees. So we'd advise that people come to see us around 3 years in advance of doing a transaction. What you can do in those 3 years is you can plan to make sure that your company is in the best position to sell. There'll not be a lot of work for a professional advisor to do in that time, but you can get on top of your debtors and your customers. You can make sure contracts are in place, but also you can do other things like look at your discretionary spending and improving your profitability or strengthening the management team. The top 3 tips I would give if you're planning your succession is to plan early. Come and see a professional advisor such as Henton's Corporate Finance early on to make sure that you're getting the best possible advice. You've got to have red flags in a transaction. There's certain things that can't be negotiated on, and as long as you know those from the outset, it just helps to ensure that boundaries in the process are actually kept. And then I just think that the last bit is to make sure that you're thinking who your preferred exit partner is. There are different things you can do for your business to make sure you're selling and promoting your business in the best way to the potential exit buyer.
Clearly the changes to business asset disposal relief in 2020 have had a significant impact. The reduction from 10 million to 1 million means that the sale of a business can now have a significant tax cost. And the fact that employee ownership is tax-free has certainly meant that employee ownership transactions have become part of business owners' considerations, but it's also become part of our playbook when we sit down with clients to consider their exit strategy. So I think tax is the starting point, and it's certainly encouraged people to consider employee ownership where they previously may not have done. But I think there are lots of other positives that clients consider in terms of maintaining a culture, in terms of maintaining legacy, but also in terms of rewarding the staff that have helped them build a business. And certainly that last one is a significant driver for people deciding that employee ownership is the right exit route. I think the most surprising thing that's come out of the employee ownership transactions that we've done is just the value of a smoother transition and succession process. The deals that we've done, the founders have tended to stay in the business and stay in there for a little longer, but also think about recruiting and building a senior management team to take the business forward. So that's probably the most significant surprise that we've seen in employee ownership transactions. There are clearly situations where employee ownership isn't right, and it would be wrong if the tax savings drove the decision to pursue employee ownership. The best examples are where businesses are very entrepreneurially led, and that's a key element of the success of the business. And so employee ownership may change that, and we think there's a risk that the business might not continue to be successful. I think the other obvious example is where there is already an established management team who are expecting to lead a management buyout at some point in the future.
So when looking at the risks for the vendor of an employee transaction, there's a balancing act between selling the company to people that you know and trust as opposed to a trade buyer who is potentially unknown to the business, against waiting longer for your money or having a lot more of your deferred income tied up in the business and the success of that business.